They told you confidence was something you're born with. That conviction is a rare gift reserved for the fearless few. But what if I told you? It's not a gift, it's a discipline. A lost art carved into stone 2,000 years ago by men who walked through fire without flinching. Men like Marcus Aurelius, who ruled the greatest empire on earth, yet still woke each morning asking, "What is in my control?" Comment this below. I choose to walk with conviction. And if your soul craves power, not from noise, but from silence, like this video, so more seekers like you can remember who they truly are. You see, most people walk through life like ghosts, haunted by doubt, crippled by hesitation. They wait for a sign, for someone to grant them permission to believe in themselves. But the Stoics? They waited for no one. They understood something timeless, that the fiercest confidence doesn't roar. It doesn't beg for attention or validation. It flows calmly like a river that knows it will reach the sea. And conviction? That is not arrogance. It is the quiet fire that burns in a person who has faced themselves and did not look away. In this video, I will take you deep, past the surface of trendy self-help slogans and into the ancient marrow of true inner power. You'll discover how a Roman emperor, a slave-turned-scholar, and a man who chose death over betrayal all shared the same quiet secret, and how you can use it today in this noisy, distracted world. This is not about pretending to be strong. This is about becoming unshakable. You will learn the forgotten truths that once shaped empires, calmed storms within men, and built legends out of ordinary souls. But I must warn you, once you hear this, you cannot unhear it. Because when you know the way, when you've seen the path, you must walk it. Stay with me until the end, because buried within the words of the Stoics lies something modern society doesn't want you to know. Something far more dangerous and far more beautiful than anything they ever taught you in school. We begin now, not with noise, but with stillness, not with a shout, but with a whisper that echoes through eternity. Let's remember what they tried to make us forget. Let's walk with confidence and conviction. 2,000 years ago, amidst the marble columns of Rome and the chaos of conquest, there lived a man draped not just in robes, but in responsibility. Marcus Aurelius, emperor, philosopher, warrior of the inner world. He didn't seek power, it was thrust upon him. And though he commanded legions and ruled over millions, he fought a far greater battle than any war on the battlefield, the war within. By candlelight, while others slept in silk and dreams of conquest, Marcus would sit alone, pen in hand, soul in reflection. And in those pages, later known as meditations, he whispered truths not meant for the masses, but for himself. He wrote not to impress, but to remind, because even emperors forget. And yet, what he remembered, we have forgotten. We live in an age of voices, louder than ever, but emptier than before. Confidence has become performance, conviction, a costume. But in Marcus's time, to walk with conviction meant something else entirely. It meant to know what you stood for, even if the world fell apart around you, especially if it did. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This was not poetry, it was survival. For a Stoic, every moment could be your last, and every day was a test of your inner fortress. The outer world, its chaos, its pleasures, its storms, was nothing compared to the inner kingdom. But Marcus was not alone. Epictetus, born a slave, lived with a crippled leg and a sharpened mind. His master could chain his body, but not his will. His teachings, later echoed by generations, pierced through illusion. No man is free who is not master of himself. And then there was Seneca, advisor to Nero, writer of wisdom, forced to take his own life with dignity. He bled calmly into the bath, not with fear, but with resolve. Why? Because he had rehearsed death in his mind daily. He had lived ready. These were not mere philosophers. They were architects of the unbreakable spirit, and their blueprints still exist. But here's the twist. The world has buried them under comfort and distraction. We scroll, we escape, we chase certainty and shrink from silence. But the Stoics, they ran toward silence. They faced the abyss with open eyes, and from it, they pulled the truth. You were never meant to follow blindly. You were meant to choose, deliberately. You were not designed to react like a leaf in the wind. You were meant to respond like a mountain, steady, grounded, unmovable. Rooted in Stoic fire is not found in books or seminars or empty affirmations. It is forged in the furnace of awareness. To walk with conviction is to carry the torch of ancient minds who saw clearly through the fog of fear. They didn't just speak about virtue, they became it. They didn't just believe, they lived, breathed, and died by the truths they embraced. So why has this been forgotten? Because this kind of confidence cannot be sold. It cannot be commodified. It asks too much. It demands silence when the world demands noise. It requires introspection when society promises distraction. It whispers discipline when culture screams indulgence. That's why it's rare. That's why it's real. And that's why, if you choose to remember, if you dare to return to the root, you will walk differently than the world. You will walk with confidence, not noise. With conviction, not chaos. Not because you shout the loudest, but because your silence carries the weight of ancient empires. Imagine waking each day not asking, "What do I feel like doing?" but instead, "What must be done?" That is how the Stoics lived, anchored not in impulse, but in intention. Confidence to them was not a fleeting feeling. It was clarity in motion, and conviction, that was alignment, your thoughts, your words, and your actions all walking the same straight path. But how does that apply to you, right now? Look around. We live in a time when people speak endlessly, yet say so little. They chase likes, yet flee responsibility. But confidence does not come from validation. It comes from preparation. It is born in the quiet hours. It is earned through mastery over the only battlefield that matters, the self. This is why Marcus Aurelius began his day reminding himself of the chaos he would face. You will meet people today who are meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, and unsocial. Not to become cynical, but to remain unshaken. He didn't rise hoping the day would be kind. He rose ready to be kind, even if the day was not. That is confidence rooted in virtue. To understand this at a deeper level, we must explore a Stoic paradox, one that might challenge everything modern society taught you. You don't control outcomes, you control effort. This may seem disempowering at first, but it is the greatest liberation you'll ever know. Why? Because when your identity is no longer tied to results, praise, victory, applause, you become invincible. When you pour yourself into right action, regardless of recognition, you no longer fear failure, you transcend it. And from that soil, confidence blooms. The Stoics knew that the path to peace was not paved with certainty. It was carved with presence. Their teachings guide us to return, not to the past, but to the present. Not to the distractions of the external world, but to the compass within. Epictetus told his students, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." Can you see the difference? It's the difference between knowing and becoming, between reading the map and walking the terrain. And most people never walk. But you're still here. You're listening. And that means the seed is alive in you. To walk with conviction is to stop waiting for conditions to be perfect. It's choosing to take the next step, even with trembling hands. It's learning that discipline is not punishment. It is freedom. That discomfort is not a curse. It is the door. Confidence doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't puff its chest or demand applause. It's the steady gaze of a person who has seen their own weakness, their own shadows, and still stands tall. It is a quiet man who knows he has already conquered the loudest enemy, his own fear. In part 2, we will dive deeper into the ancient fire that forged this way of life. We will explore the myths, the distortions, and the truths too dangerous for mainstream thinking. We'll answer the question, what happens when you no longer fear anything the world can take from you? What happens when you no longer fear anything the world can take from you? You become untouchable, not in body, but in spirit, not immune to pain, but immune to defeat. You begin to walk the earth with the quiet assurance of someone who owns nothing, yet lacks nothing. This is the hidden truth the Stoics held close, and it is one the modern world rejects, because it cannot sell you what you already possess within. You see, the legends of Stoicism, Marcus, Seneca, Epictetus, did not arrive at their strength by avoiding hardship. They embraced it. They invited it. Because they understood that to grow, the soul must be tested, refined, stripped of illusions. Modern minds often confuse Stoicism with emotional numbness, as if to be Stoic is to be cold, unfeeling. That is a lie. True Stoicism is fiery restraint, not frozen indifference. It's not the absence of emotion, it's the mastery of it. When grief comes, the Stoic mourns. When joy arrives, the Stoic smiles. But neither defines them, neither rules them. This balance, the ability to feel deeply yet remain unmoved, is what creates real confidence. Because when you are no longer a prisoner of your emotions, you become the architect of your fate. Let's go deeper still. There is a myth that confidence is built in public. That conviction is earned through applause. But the Stoics knew otherwise. They knew that every battle begins in silence, that the most critical victories are won when no one is watching. Imagine this: Marcus Aurelius, ruler of an empire, standing alone before dawn, writing truths in a leather-bound journal not meant for the world, not meant for legacy, just meant to hold himself accountable. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. These words were never shouted from a balcony. They were whispered to the soul. They were reminders that it is consistency in the shadows that makes the light real. And what of fear? Fear, the great thief of our age, the whisperer that tells you to wait, to doubt, to shrink. The Stoics did not seek to erase fear. They sought to understand it. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." How many battles have you fought in your mind that never came to pass? How many moments have you forfeited because of what might happen? This is why Stoic conviction isn't loud. It's stable. It's prepared. It says, if it comes, I will meet it. And if it does not, I will not waste this breath fearing it. Even death, the great equalizer, did not frighten them. Why? Because to the Stoics, death was not the enemy. Wasted life was. They rehearsed death daily, not morbidly, but meaningfully, to remind themselves of the fleeting nature of time. And from this awareness, they drew power, a fire that made every choice sacred, every action deliberate. This is what modern culture has lost in its chase for more: the sacredness of enough, the reverence for the present moment, the courage to be, not just to become. But if you reclaim this, if you sit, as they once did, in silence, if you write, reflect, and remember your own power, then you too will walk with confidence. Not because life is easy, but because you are ready. You'll no longer need to be seen to feel real. You'll no longer need to be right to feel worthy. And you'll no longer tremble before the unknown, because you will have met yourself, and you will not look away. In the next part, we'll explore how to bring this fire into your daily life through rituals, reflections, and deliberate practice. You'll learn exactly how to apply what these Stoic legends taught, so that your walk through this world becomes a practice in power. You've listened, you've remembered. Now it's time to live. Because all the wisdom in the world means nothing, unless it becomes a habit of your hands, a rhythm of your breath, a decision you make when no one is looking. So how do you walk with confidence and conviction, not just in thought, but in action? It begins at dawn. Not the dawn marked by the rising sun, but the one that happens inside you, the moment you choose to wake up deliberately. The Stoics believed the morning was sacred. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I am rising to do the work of a human being, not to scroll, not to react, but to live on purpose." So, when your eyes open tomorrow, don't reach for your phone. Reach for stillness. Sit at the edge of your bed, feel your breath, listen to the silence, and ask one question: what would a person of conviction do today? Let that question lead you, not your emotions, not your comfort. The next practice is premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. It sounds dark, but it is the key to lasting peace. Each morning, imagine what could go wrong: delays, rejection, loss, frustration. Not to be negative, but to be prepared, to face the day not with fragile hope, but resilient readiness. Seneca said, "He robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand." This mental rehearsal hardens the spirit, not into stone, but into tempered steel. You begin to greet difficulty not as a threat, but as a training ground. Now, pair this with evening reflection. Before sleep, ask, what did I do well today? Where did I fall short? How will I respond better tomorrow? This is not punishment, it is refinement. As Epictetus taught, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. The Stoic path does not promise applause, but it guarantees growth, and growth requires you to face your reflection, not with shame, but with courage. Next, adopt the ritual of voluntary discomfort. Once a week, skip the luxuries, take a cold shower, fast, walk instead of drive, wear simple clothes. Why? Because, as Seneca warned, we must practice poverty to learn that it is nothing to fear. When you choose discomfort, you become immune to its sting. You prove to yourself that you are not owned by ease, that your identity is not rooted in luxury, but in discipline. And finally, speak less. Not because your voice is unworthy, but because your silence is powerful. The Stoics were masters of restraint, every word weighed, every sentence shaped with intention. So, before you speak, pause, ask, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Let your words be arrows of clarity, not noise fired in all directions. And when faced with chaos, return to your breath. It is your anchor. It is always with you. 3 deep breaths can remind you of who you are and what cannot be taken from you. These practices are not quick fixes. They are not hacks. They are ancient rituals for the modern soul. And the more you live them, the more you will realize confidence is not a performance. Conviction is not an act. They are the natural byproducts of a soul aligned with virtue. You will move through crowds with calm. You will speak with weight, not volume. And when others lose themselves in storms, you will remember, you are the sky. In the final part of this journey, we'll bring everything full circle, summoning the voice of the ancients and merging it with the pulse of your life now. We'll end with one question, one challenge that only you can answer. So, here we are. You've walked through the marble halls of ancient minds. You've sat beside the fire of forgotten wisdom. And now, you stand at the edge, not of understanding, but of becoming. Because this was never about philosophy in the abstract. This was about you, your choices, your presence, your life. The world is not lacking information. It is starved for integrity. Confidence is not something you summon. It is something you become when your actions, words, and thoughts are all rooted in the same soil. Conviction is not born in comfort. It rises when you choose the harder, right over the easier wrong. When you decide that virtue is more important than validation. When you move through the noise of the world without letting it move through you. The Stoics were not gods. They bled, they failed, they wept. Marcus Aurelius doubted. Seneca battled guilt. Epictetus endured unimaginable hardship. But they returned again and again to the path, to the principles, because they knew this simple truth. The one who conquers himself is greater than the one who conquers a city. And now, so do you. So, what do you do with this? You stop waiting for the world to change before you begin. You start with your next breath. You align your spine. You lift your eyes. You walk, not to impress, not to dominate, but to honor the strength that's always been in you, waiting. Because confidence is not about having all the answers. It's about showing up with intention, even in uncertainty. And conviction is the quiet power of one who knows who they are, even if no one else ever understands. So, I leave you with this question. Not to answer out loud, but to carve into the walls of your life. Who are you when no one is watching? And if the answer isn't who you aspire to be, then begin. Right now. This breath, this step, and the next. Let the world keep spinning in noise and haste. You walk with silence. You walk with presence. You walk with confidence and conviction. Not because of the path beneath your feet, but because of the fire within your chest. If this message stirred something inside you, something ancient, something awakening, type, "I walk with conviction" in the comments. Let the world know you're not just a spectator in this life. You're a force, forged in silence, guided by virtue. And if this video touched your spirit, if it lit a fire or calmed a storm, like this video. Not for the algorithm, but to mark the moment you remembered who you are. This isn't the end of the path. It's the return to it. Until next time, walk well, warrior.